Not all tests arrive loudly. Some come quietly, disguised as jokes, comments, or casual remarks. When a man tests your self-respect, he rarely does it directly. He does not say, "I want to see how much you value yourself." Instead, he speaks in ways that apply subtle pressure. He watches closely. He listens to your response, not just your words, but your tone, your posture, your energy. These tests are moments of truth. Self-respect is not something you declare, it is something you demonstrate. And it is often revealed not in grand situations, but in small, uncomfortable moments where you are asked, silently, to tolerate less than you deserve. Many women fail these tests, not because they lack intelligence, but because they want to keep harmony. They fear conflict. They fear being misunderstood. So they minimize themselves. They laugh things off. They explain too much. They forgive too quickly. And the moment you tolerate disrespect, a lesson is taught. The test is never about the words themselves. It is about the boundary behind them. A man observes, will she protect her dignity or will she sacrifice it to be liked? Self-respect requires awareness, awareness of what feels off, awareness of when your body tightens, awareness of when your intuition speaks quietly but firmly. A woman who respects herself does not react emotionally. She responds consciously. She does not attack. She does not defend. She remains grounded. And in that grounded presence, the test either ends or escalates. Understand this. People test boundaries not because they are cruel, but because boundaries are invisible until enforced. How you respond in these early moments sets the tone for everything that follows. Self-respect is not loud. It is clear.
Words are never random. They carry intention, even when spoken casually. When a man speaks, he reveals more than he realizes. His phrases, his timing, his tone, all of it reflects how he views you and how he believes you will respond. Certain statements are not meant to communicate. They are meant to test. Each one asks a quiet question. Will she accept this? Will she doubt herself? Will she lower her standard to keep me comfortable? A woman with self-respect listens beyond the surface. She does not only hear what is said, she feels what is implied. Testing language often appears harmless. It may sound playful, honest, or joking, but beneath it lies a subtle challenge to your boundaries. If you dismiss it, the behavior repeats. If you excuse it, it escalates. How you respond teaches him how to treat you. This is why self-respect is rooted in presence. You do not rush to reply. You do not over-explain. You do not defend your worth. You pause. You observe. You choose your response deliberately. A woman who respects herself understands that not every statement deserves engagement. Sometimes clarity comes from silence. Sometimes from a calm boundary. Sometimes from walking away emotionally before doing so physically. Words reveal intentions, but responses reveal standards. If your response is grounded, respectful, and firm, the test ends. If your response is uncertain, apologetic, or self-diminishing, the test continues. Self-respect is not about proving strength. It is about refusing to betray yourself. And the moment you stop betraying yourself, words lose their power to test you.
When a man says you're too sensitive, he is not describing you, he is testing you. This phrase shifts focus away from his behavior and places the burden on your emotional response. It quietly asks, will she doubt her own feelings to keep peace? Sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness. A woman who is sensitive notices tone, intention, and energy. She feels when something is off before it becomes obvious. When this awareness is dismissed, it is not honesty, it is invalidation. A woman with self-respect does not argue her emotions. She does not try to prove that her feelings are justified. She understands that feelings do not require permission to exist.
When someone tells you that you are too sensitive, they are often uncomfortable with accountability. Rather than adjusting their behavior, they question your perception. This is a subtle attempt to destabilize your inner authority. The test is simple. Will you trust yourself, or will you surrender your inner voice? A woman grounded in self-respect responds with calm clarity. She may say little, she may say nothing at all, but internally she makes a decision. She notes the pattern. She observes whether respect follows or fades. Self-respect does not demand validation. It remains steady even when misunderstood. The moment you stop apologizing for how you feel, the test loses its power.
Honesty without responsibility is not truth, it is convenience. When a man says, "I'm just being honest," after saying something hurtful, he is testing whether you will accept disrespect wrapped in truth. True honesty seeks clarity, not dominance. It does not require emotional harm to be effective. Words spoken without care reveal more about the speaker than the listener. This phrase often appears when boundaries are challenged. It asks, "Will she excuse my behavior because I labeled it honesty?" A woman with self-respect understands the difference between honesty and cruelty. She knows the truth can be spoken firmly and kindly. When honesty becomes a shield for disrespect, it loses its integrity. The test here is subtle but powerful. If you accept this behavior, you teach him that your emotional safety is negotiable. If you calmly acknowledge it and set a boundary, you teach him that honesty must coexist with respect. A woman with self-respect does not attack. She does not shame. She simply refuses to normalize behavior that diminishes her. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is a clear statement followed by consistent action. Self-respect is revealed not in confrontation, but in consistency. When honesty is real, it builds trust. When it is used as a weapon, it destroys it. And a woman who knows the difference never loses herself trying to be understood.
When a man says you're overthinking it, he is not simplifying the situation, he is testing your intuition. This phrase suggests that your awareness is the problem, not the behavior that triggered it. It asks a quiet question: will she silence her inner voice to avoid discomfort? Overthinking is often misunderstood. In reality, what is labeled as overthinking is frequently pattern recognition. A woman who pays attention notices inconsistencies, shifts in energy, and unspoken tensions. Dismissing this awareness weakens her self-trust. A woman with self-respect does not abandon her intuition to appear easygoing. She understands that intuition is not paranoia. It is accumulated experience speaking softly. The test here is whether you will choose comfort over clarity. Many women respond by downplaying their concerns, telling themselves they are imagining things. In doing so, they teach others that their inner voice can be ignored. A self-respecting woman listens inward before responding outward. She does not argue, she observes. She notes whether actions align with words. Self-respect means you do not need permission to question what feels wrong. When your intuition is consistently dismissed, respect erodes. And where respect erodes, emotional safety cannot exist. Trust your awareness. It exists to protect you. When a man says, "That's just how I am," he is not explaining himself. He is testing your standards. This phrase avoids accountability. It suggests permanence where growth should exist. It quietly asks, will she accept my behavior as unchangeable, even if it disrespects her? A woman with self-respect understands that personality explains behavior, but it does not excuse it. Growth is a choice. Respect is a responsibility. Accepting this phrase without reflection teaches others that your boundaries are flexible. It communicates that your comfort is less important than their habits. A self-respecting woman does not try to change a man. She simply decides what she will and will not tolerate. Her standards are not threats, they are filters. The test is not whether he will change. The test is whether you will shrink. When you remain calm and consistent in your standards, clarity emerges. Either respect rises or distance forms. Both outcomes serve your well-being. Self-respect does not argue, it chooses. And what you choose repeatedly defines how you are treated. When a man says, "Why can't you be like other women?" he is not making a comparison, he is testing your identity. This phrase applies pressure disguised as opinion. It challenges your individuality and asks a dangerous question: will you abandon who you are to be accepted? Comparison is never neutral. It creates insecurity, competition, and self-doubt. A woman who accepts comparison begins to negotiate her worth. She starts adjusting herself to fit expectations that were never hers. A woman with self-respect does not compete for approval. She understands that comparison is often used to control behavior, not to express preference. When this phrase appears, the test is clear. Will she stay grounded in her identity, or will she reshape herself to avoid rejection? A self-respecting woman does not argue why she is different. She does not justify her nature. She simply remains aligned with who she is. Individuality is not negotiable. Identity is not adjustable for comfort. Men respect women who stand firmly in themselves. Authentic presence commands respect because it cannot be manipulated. The moment you refuse to compare yourself, the test ends.
When a man says, "You're making this a big deal," he is not calming the situation. He is minimizing your boundaries. This phrase tests whether you will shrink your needs to preserve peace. It subtly suggests that what matters to you should matter less. Minimization weakens self-respect because it trains you to ignore your internal signals. A woman who respects herself understands that importance is subjective, but boundaries are personal and valid. Peace built on silence is not peace. It is self-abandonment. A self-respecting woman does not escalate. She does not plead for understanding. She recognizes the pattern and responds with clarity. Sometimes clarity looks like a calm statement. Sometimes it looks like emotional distance. Sometimes it looks like walking away from the conversation entirely. The test here is not about intensity. It is about alignment. When you honor what matters to you, even quietly, you protect your self-respect. And when self-respect is intact, respect from others follows naturally. Your needs do not need permission to exist.
Not every test comes with words. Some arrive through absence. When communication becomes unclear, delayed, or inconsistent, it is not always accidental. Silence can be a test of self-respect. It quietly asks, will she chase clarity, or will she remain grounded without answers? Emotional withdrawal often pressures a woman to overextend. She explains more, she gives more, she lowers her standards to restore connection. In doing so, she teaches others that her boundaries dissolve in uncertainty. A woman with self-respect does not panic in silence. She observes. She does not rush to fill gaps that are not hers to fill. Silence reveals patience or insecurity. It reveals whether your peace depends on someone else's attention. Self-respect means you do not chase closure. You expect clarity, and when it is not offered, you choose self-alignment over emotional chasing. A grounded woman understands confusion is information, distance is communication, and silence, when repeated, is a decision. When you stop chasing clarity,
clarity appears, either through words or through actions. Silence loses its power when you remain whole within it. Every response is a decision, and every decision teaches others how to treat you. You do not need perfect words to protect your self-respect. You need alignment between what you feel, what you allow, and what you choose. A woman with self-respect does not over-explain. She does not argue her worth. She responds calmly, briefly, and with intention. The way you respond to tests determines whether they continue. When boundaries are weak, tests multiply. When boundaries are clear, tests end. Your response does not need to be emotional to be powerful. Calm clarity carries authority. Silence, when chosen consciously, speaks louder than justification. A woman who respects herself understands that consistency matters more than intensity. One clear boundary, enforced repeatedly, reshapes the dynamic. Self-respect is not reactive, it is deliberate. When your response reflects self-mastery, people adjust or they leave. Both outcomes preserve your dignity. Your response today becomes your standard tomorrow.
You cannot argue someone into respecting you. Respect is not persuaded, it is perceived. A woman with self-respect does not demand better treatment, she embodies it. Her posture, her tone, her choices communicate her standards before words ever do. When you stop negotiating your boundaries, people feel the shift. They may not understand it intellectually, but they sense it emotionally. And emotions shape behavior more than explanations ever will. Self-respect is revealed in what you allow to repeat. One moment of tolerance teaches a lesson. One calm boundary rewrites the dynamic. A self-respecting woman does not threaten or warn. She observes patterns and responds with consistency. This consistency is what builds respect over time. Respect grows where clarity lives. Clarity grows where self-trust is present. When your actions align with your values, confusion disappears. Those who cannot meet your standards either rise or fall away. Both outcomes protect you. The highest form of self-respect is quiet alignment. You do not need dramatic exits. You do not need long explanations. You do not need to convince anyone of your worth. A woman who chooses herself does so calmly. She listens to her intuition. She honors her boundaries. She moves forward without resentment. When you choose yourself without noise, you reclaim your energy. Tests lose meaning. Words lose power. External approval becomes irrelevant. Self-respect is not about proving strength. It is about refusing self-betrayal. And when you stop betraying yourself, the world adjusts. Choose yourself quietly. Let respect follow naturally.